was your first hire on your team? So like for me, it was like I need someone to like serious hires like ops. I just need someone to like handle the admin.
So tell me a little bit about that moment. So when you hired your first person in real estate,
yeah.
How many years in were you?
So I didn't hire anyone when I sold.
Okay.
So because I only sold 2 years.
So we're talking about just sell homes.
Yeah.
And at what point did you? At what point were you?
So when I originally, I was a lot cheaper. Like I did not charge a lot. So I had a base package where I would just manage all your ads for $425 a month. Mm-hmm. And obviously ad spend on top of that, but that'd be whatever you want. But no matter what ad you had, didn't matter, $425 a month all in, I'd handle it all. Mm-hmm. And off of that, I got to about $17,000 a month in revenue within like 6 months. And I was like, but like that many people at that amount. And I had a few people on discounts. I gave like friends and family. Like I had one guy pay me like $250 a month for that. And I'm like, one, I just at the time didn't know how cheap that was. But and I had zero help. So it was just like me. So I was doing like 15, 16 hour days minimum and just like grinding out. And that was without talking about like business development or anything like that. It was just straight me managing all their stuff.
So how much so how many entrepreneurs run through that? Right, where they run through the gauntlet, they don't realize they have an underpriced product, because based on your calculations, you're running about $160,000 a year.
Then,
okay, 17,
yeah,
the 17,
then,
yeah. So, but that's because you were undervalued and overworked, right? And so a lot of people, that's when they make changes, and it's really good that you had so much strength in your lead generation, because that meant that you could become profitable and you'd be alive to be there. Yeah. Right, like, because when we talk about businesses, some businesses just don't make it.
Yeah, and that was fun. So we actually, once I figured out the pricing issue, we actually almost dropped down from that initial group of clients. I probably still only have about 2 of them, because obviously we jacked up prices and then started adding different packages for different things.
So as soon as you did that, you used price as a filter, and the reason you only have 2 is because your ideal client profile changed.
Oh yeah, drastically. So like now we have a very set. Back then it was, like everyone's starting a business. It's okay, I'll take everybody because I just need to make money. And then now it's more like we probably talk more people out of hiring us than we actually take on now.
And that makes a lot of sense, because when you look at the onboarding process and so on, for anything that doesn't really have a lifespan, that can become a challenge for a business.
You don't want to work with people for just 2 months unless it's set up ahead of time that we're just doing like a 2-month engagement.
Yep.
Because that's a thing we do too, especially for like teams. Because some teams are like, I only want to do this stuff in house, with no desire to outsource. So like those teams, like that's fine.
Well, that's more like you're in my relationship.
Yeah. Well, that's even more of a training.
Consult.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do like some consulting and things like that, but I have like a full-time marketing assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that, it's like some teams will do that. Other teams will actually set it all up for them and run it for a month or 2. And then once we kind of get it streamlined, then it's like we'll start offloading piece by piece to someone on their team.
Okay, so this is interesting to me. And the reason for that is because I see this. So I guess there's no context for this yet.
That's fine. Context is overrated.
So I'm gonna build in some context. So my first 3 years of real estate, I started wanting to do 2 a month. My first year I closed at 39, my second year I closed at 60, and my third year I did 60 transactions in 6 months by myself.
Yeah.
My market was awful. My market still is considered not fantastic.
Yeah, generally Alberta right now is not a great market.
Think of like the general market as being 1 buyer for every 2 sellers. Okay. And then the condo market is 1 buyer for 3 sellers, and luxury is 1 for 5.
Yeah.
So not the same environment, obviously, as here.
Just a little different.
So that was the pressure under which I made my first hires.
Yeah.
Is that they're very similar, overworked, but I didn't have the same pricing challenge because there's defined pricing here. And so I was coming in, and I probably at the moment that I started hiring had a lot more resources.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe actually, let's not confuse that. Cash is a resource of which you can use or burn at your own free will, I guess. But being that that's the case, now that we run a team that does like upwards, like over 100, we have over 100 transactions now here. Yeah. But when we look at that type of machine, now I look at it, and when I see things like lead generation and different things, because there are so many changes, right? Like even in recent history, we saw Facebook organic growth change a couple of years back. And then the ways that those things are changing and the new dynamic ideas that are coming in, where people used to really focus on getting their like email open rates to like 40% or higher, and now everybody kind of looks at it like, what's Facebook Messenger, like 82%, 90%? Like there's so many different communication styles to get through to people. So when we look at it, like our team, as far as a marketing standpoint, I believe the reason that I wouldn't offboard it at this particular point is because I need to know it well enough to tune it and change it.
Yeah. So for us, what we've noticed, like our ideal clients are people who are still actively involved in everything. Because like the ones who just like hand it, walk away, like you can still get results, but it's noticeably less than those who are still engaged online and actually doing things. So like so we actually will still even run trainings for and invite clients to it on things that we do, partially for that reason. Because then it could also spark ideas in them. Like if we're talking about how to do something, because if you're doing 100+ deals a year, like you'll have ideas I don't have too. Or maybe you're done things I haven't done, or you just have a different way to look at perspective-wise. So if I'm like, hey, here's something really cool we're able to do right now, you might go, wait, maybe we can do this. And then we can kind of figure out a way to attack it together.
That's actually my experience now. So it took me about 32 months from when I opened doors in 2013 to get into the top 1% in the world. It just like, that meant that by the time I was in my second year of business, I was already on the advisory council with things like business coaching. I was already exchanging business plans with people over $1 million a year. And so in that like learning environment, it ended up being that a lot of the people that market to realtors as a general profile were no longer a fit for me. And some of the people that were industry leaders, it was more collaboration because they do need the puzzle piece that we provide. Right? Like essentially, I really believe that when you work well with consultants, you're going to it's just like when you have teammates. Like a lot of teammates are worried that they maybe only get half or whatever the split is. But the truth is you should be able to make more than twice together. So, like, wouldn't you rather have 75%, of what we can make together is essentially like how the math would work out if you use that same type of logic. And I believe the same thing with all relationships based on energy. So if you and I apply our energy together, we should take your expertise and my expertise and come up with a product that's better than either of us could create alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's like for us, that's actually like one of the pivots we're making in our marketing of like talking more about like you're hiring us. Like it's like having an internal marketing team that's not internal.
Well, that's
as opposed to
really,
just hire a lead gen program.
Yeah. So as far as this is something that I've actually talked a lot about with different agents, because as soon as I had essentially made it up, there's a bunch of people asking why. Like, how the hell did you get here? Like one of the ways that you find out that you kind of broke into the top end is
when the top guys are asking.
Actually, I'm a Remax guy, so there's something called Elite Retreat. Are you aware of that?
I know of it. I haven't been to it, but I know of it. I mean, I was in Remax pretty well for a little while. Yeah,
so I would say that the vast majority of Remaxers don't know this exists.
Yeah.
And what it is it's about 180 of the top realtors in the world for 2 days with now the CEO, Adam Contos. But previously, I was going to this in like 2013, 14, or sorry, I guess the first time I got in was 16.
Yeah, I've targeted that event with ads.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I found out where it was, so I targeted the building.
Oh yeah, So it moved. This year they did it in San Antonio.
Yeah.
So in that room, it's so interesting to see how people use their business, and then when we talk to the people that we get to go talk to, like one of the reasons that I'm in Toronto right now is that I'm going to be a speaker in front of 1,000+ people, and one of the things that most people ask me is basically about that leveling up process, because everybody's interested in growth, right? And so what I see is like the difference in between a service and a consultant. That's something that like, and also what community comes with it is another thing that is like really starting to become the forefront.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you kind of have to do it yourself, but in doing it yourself, you have to still be good at it in order to get things to grow.
Yeah.
So by working with a consultant, you can essentially like learn how to fish, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to fish like you do,
But you can
But you're going to catch some stuff.
Yeah, you're not going to die.
Yeah, you're not going to
feed yourself.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you get to a specific point, and I normally see it as being overwhelmed. Yeah. So when people are just like, I just want you to deal with it. Yeah. That's what I hear. Yeah. I hear I am overwhelmed with something else. So if they want you to do lead generation, what are they overwhelmed with?
Too many leads normally. Is actually, interestingly, what it normally is for us.
Okay, so not processing is what the truth is.
So they're not following up well, so they just want more leads and try and just take the cream off the top.
Right, and that's because almost everybody in the web lead game seems to value a new lead over what they have.
Yeah, which is the wrong way to approach it.
So we're so trained to chase shiny stuff, right? Like that's
so
the nature.
Funny thing, like we will bring our clients, and some of the first things we do is talk about ways to market to their current database and sphere, and try to work it more.
Oh yeah.
Or even just like take those dead leads and like, do you know Dean Jackson?
Yeah.
Just do like the Dean Jackson 9-word email. Mm-hmm. Like it works almost every time.
Yep.
So we just throw that out there, and we'll. Like those is a quick way to get wins for people, and like running ads to the database, running ads to like the website traffic, and
the truth of the matter is that the reason that that's so important now is because if you take 2 steps into the future, it's going to be everything.
Yeah.
So the ability to mine data right now is changing. Mm-hmm. It's changing drastically. Forced registration is changing. Canada's kind of at the forefront with C-spam, so congratulations on getting through that.
Yeah, it really didn't affect us that much.
I've seen some American lead gen companies like make the attempt, and they're talking about major spends in order to make their product sound with it. Yeah. But and that's something I guess all agents that are using non-domestic lead generation should know is that could be a challenge you run into, is you could be violating C-spam.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
Which isn't a big deal. They don't have very big fines.
Yeah, and even then...
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
They have really
there are big fines, but I mean, even if you screw up the like, you should definitely take all steps to obviously comply with it. But I've seen people violate it. I've never actually seen anyone in real estate.
Well, here's how I see those things happen.
It'll come here eventually.
We're not really hearing about like our friends getting in trouble with this right now, right? But eventually there will be. Yeah. And then the idea is that investigations are always done in the future, meaning that when they take place, they're going to examine everything that took place before then.
They set their sights on our industry.
Yeah, and then they're going to take a look at all the violations you had up to the point where you essentially got in trouble. Yeah. So so that's definitely something to pay attention to. But it's interesting to see how those things change. Yeah. And Canada made that attempt a few years ago to do the do not call list, which basically turned into the call list.
Yep.
And so consumers have been they shout out that desire into the marketplace, right? Especially the next generation. Do not contact me, right? And now iPhone 11 is going to put it in their hand.
Yeah, I like that feature. I can't, obviously as a business owner, can't turn that on, but I love that feature of silence all calls I don't know.
Silence all calls I don't know. And you also notice how you get text messages and it asks you if you want to report them as junk?
Yeah.
So these systems are going to end up working together where they actually know like the intentions of calls and they can filter out. Like I think it'll filter out a lot of the calls coming from overseas.
Yeah,
that's probably the big thing.
Because eventually it's just going to be like phone numbers have trust logs the same way that a lot of domains do for email. Because like if you have, and this is what always surprises me with like some of the brands. Like Remax does it, Royal LePage does it, KW does it. Like they all do it. It's like they give every agent an email address at their domain. That's a terrible idea, because all it takes is one agent buying a list illegally, emailing 20,000 people and getting like marked as spam and abuse and all that, and they're now like blacklisted by Google. Like,
yeah, I wonder how Google's going to build their way around it, because there's like lots of corporations that do that. In fact, most corporations do hand out.
Well, real estate's a little bit of like a interesting because it's different, because it's independent contractors who have no oversight from corporate. Whereas like if it was like Microsoft, like everyone who works there still has that oversight from corporate.
It's tough to say. Like I believe Uber was recently fined a heavy amount for in the United States for referring to their drivers as contractors instead of employees. Yeah. So the line between contractor and employee these days, I don't know that you can see it outside of the courtroom.
Well, I think the big change that will eventually happen is team members won't be able to be independent contractors anymore. Because that's the big deal. Because like generally, if you look at a lot of the independent contractor stuff, most agents are truly independent contractors. But most team members are really the employee of the team leader. So like probably the people who work for you, you have meetings that you tell them when and where to be, and you give them operating procedures of how to.
And
that's
tools.
An employee.
Yep.
And they have to follow your operating procedures.
Yep.
That's an employee.
And I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I actually think that that's probably going to be the future of real estate. Because previous to real estate, I had worked in mortgages, and I also worked in cars, high-end cars actually. Mm-hmm. And seeing that model there, where so the value that is created in real estate is now being divided differently than it had been in the past. Yeah. And it's actually like a big cycle. So originally brokerages themselves were like big teams. Everybody gave the broker a split. Yeah. The broker had the policy and so on. So even under that scenario, pretty questionable if they were.
At all.
Right. So these things shifted, but also what shifted is those rock star agents were holding their brokers hostage. Yeah. Because upon splits, there was so much value exchange there, and it was asymmetrical, meaning that what Remax put everybody on their tails with is making a really interesting filter. Yeah. And the filter basically meant that if you didn't do much business, you couldn't afford to work there. Yeah. And if you did a lot of business, you couldn't afford to work anywhere else. So they built their brand on essentially getting the best talent and retaining it.
Which is different now.
And well, the landscape is changing now.
Yeah.
So now what we're seeing is that almost like a micro cycle. Meaning that now that brokerage model is being seen by teams again. Yeah. And teams are creating value in the marketplace in a way that has been absent, I believe. Yeah. And that's because as properties gained in value, commissions didn't really change. The structure, the percentage, and that's because the roles got larger. Now, like in the past, we were basically salespeople and we were kind of really working with the lawyers to get everything done. And now we have to be effective in contracts. We have to be effective in marketing in a way that we hadn't had to be in the past. Yeah. We also have to be salespeople, and we also have to have service. So those things and the way that they changed and the demand that they put on were offset by the rise in commissions with the rise of real estate values. Yeah. And so now that there's enough value there, that's going to be split in a company the way that we see it endless examples in the marketplace.
So where do you focus as a team leader most of your attention kind of in the process? Like, are you looking at the customer service stuff, the lead gen, the marketing, the sales? Kind of like what is to you is like your main focus as your role versus what you've put onto the rest of the team?
That's a good. So that's something that's been shifting in my business because this year is the first year that I am not a top producer on my team. Yeah. And next year will very likely be the last year that I'm client facing.
Which is where I see more and more teams doing that now.
Well, the truth of the matter is that once you get to a certain level, you either are the manager or you have to hire a manager. Yeah. And then the other aspect is like, really, where does your team need you? So a lot of team leaders, they need them in production. In fact, when you look at the business plans and the finances of most teams, what we see is that they take home, I would say, somewhere around 48% to 52% of the gross commission earnings. Okay, but the thing that they fail to account for is how much of that was actually their sales. Yeah. So what would it look like differently if you put all the commission, all the GCI into a bucket and then paid yourself the same split as you do everyone else? Yeah. Then how does your business look and how is that different to how you're accounting for it now? Because I think in that case what you're going to end up finding is that a lot of team leaders are essentially top producing agents that are so good they create like a gravitational force, and now there's enough value surrounding them. Owners. It's not the same. Yeah. It's very much not the same.
And that's where like I really admire like Keith Roy of like being able to just take 8 months off and team still runs and has a great year. Because that's a sign of a well-built team.
It is a well-built team. The actual entrepreneur's test historically is only 6 weeks. So if you can leave for 6 weeks without any contact at all, and your business is not on fire upon your return, that is a test passed. And that means that you may be able to do something like 8 months.
Can you leave for 6 weeks right now?
Yeah, I definitely could leave the team that I have for 6 weeks and expect everybody to be standing when I return.
Now, of that, where do you think right now, in terms of time away, would be that limit for you?
Oh, at 6 weeks, I'd be very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's assume you had something else that was occupying, like you're launching a new business or you're traveling the world or something. Just like, if you didn't have that just pulled to come back, with you not being involved in your business, how long do you think you could be away, like right now?
Right now, I think that I'd probably be right around that threshold. I think at 6 weeks, the pull from the team would be pretty significant. And if you didn't replace some form of leadership, then we'd have trouble. But technically, like what I mean is that the team could run 6 weeks on its current game plan. And have very little contact for me to keep everything running. And I have some pretty fresh teammates, but I also have some pretty strong systems. Is also how that takes the conversation to who is your ideal client. And this is something that I think that the majority of real estate businesses don't really operate on that. Who is your actual ideal client rather than 10 next leads? Right?
So I know for us, we've kind of narrowed down to agents doing probably $300,000 a year to about the $900,000 mark who are active on social and enjoy being active on social. So it's not just about I'm on there because I have to be. It's like they actively enjoy being there. And they'll engage with people.
So what else do you know about that group?
So we actually just did the whole, we had a team planning meeting. We actually wrote it all down. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head because we actually created 3 segments of it for different things that we offer. So for our main packages, because we also now have different levels of packages, so we have a different one for each level. Our biggest package, it's that 3 to $600,000-700,000. They're probably between about 30 and 50. Normally, it's a woman. There's just notice when we were looking at all our things.
The average realtor across the country is a 47-year-old woman.
Yeah, so it fits in there. And probably been in the business less than 10 years.
Right.
Because we found that past that, they're really stuck in their ways comparatively. And have to be active on social. And then also understand it all. So when I'm if I ask you about a Facebook group, you know immediately if I'm talking about a Facebook page or a Facebook group. And
what's the difference? I'm just kidding.
I was just really? Come on.
Sorry.
When I run, when I do job ads, one of the things we actually put in is a question at the bottom. And I'll just, this is an ad for a social media marketer. And at the bottom will be by the way, tell us the name of our Facebook group for real estate agents. It's amazing, one, just how many people miss the question, which I get. A lot of people apply without reading it. They just submit resume. We have people literally in the cover letter talking about being excited about their future in the dental industry. It's ridiculous. But say 20% actually see and answer the question. At least half just say the name of our Facebook page. And you get some people who'll be trick question, you don't have a group. I'm no. If you go to our Facebook page,
trick question,
linked group. You go to our website, scroll down, join our Facebook group for real estate agents. I couldn't have made these. You email me because someone will email. My reply, the signature, has the Facebook group. There could not be an easier way, an easier question for people who take maybe 30 seconds is giving them a little too much time. It's that quick.
So at the beginning of 2018, I would have said that my largest weakness would have probably been around acquiring and retaining talent. Right? And now at the close of 2019, I think that it is switched over to a strength.
That's how I used to be too. I used to have a lot of trouble finding the right people. Now I've got into a pretty good groove. So
what did you change?
Big one was the actual ads themselves to attract people. Because at the beginning I hired a lot based on just people I knew in my network, and then found that those often didn't work out. Whereas when I went and did a job ad that I wrote in my voice and really made it clear and had a little bit of fun with it, that we weren't your ordinary place to come and work, that started working out really well for us. And then adding that little question at the bottom. Because I actually, for the most part, throw away resumes. I just look at the cover letter. I don't care that much about their history. I can train. I'm hiring for culture. Like, are you going to fit with our team? Are you going to be a good fit? Will everyone on the team get along with you to at least some degree? Because, like, how to do Facebook ads, I can train that. Like, if you know how to use a computer, I can show you how to do Facebook ads pretty easily. Like, our last hire, I think on day 4, she was running ads for clients that were getting, like, $2 leads. Like, it's not hard once you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, once you get past that initial phase, then there's, like, then teaching them more of the strategy behind the mechanics of everything. But the actual just, like, logistical, mechanical side of it, it's so easy. I don't need you to be experienced in that. So that was the big one for us, just finding the right people.
Is there anything that you like in work history?
I've never really cared.
There's something I look at. So normally I'm looking through the resume to say, have you worked in an office before?
Yeah.
Right? Meaning that, am I going to have to do the basic training? Meaning, don't disrupt the people around you. Like,
so we don't have an office.
And that's something that's not a challenge for you, right?
But
but also those people know what expected productivity is, right?
Yeah.
And then the second thing I look for is hospitality. I don't care if you waited tables when you were 15 or however old you have to be to do it.
Yeah.
But the truth is that I really do believe that people, some people are much better at taking care of people than others.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a great place. One, if you were attracted to that environment early in your work life, that's probably one of your strengths. Just like when I asked you what you did to change your hiring outcome, well, obviously you adjusted your marketing. Like, you played to your strength.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing, and then the other thing that I've found over time is just like you were mentioning with getting right fits and so on.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up outsourcing that.
Yeah.
So just like we work together, I work with an HR consultant, and so like our last admin hire was 200 applications to about 20 psych evaluations for job fit. I interviewed 3. I definitely could have hired 2 out of the 3. And then when you mentioned that, like, who's our Facebook group, the winning candidate, she was able to tell me about our company and like why she's here.
Yeah, those are like, we had someone who showed up to an interview time who had watched like 4 hours of my show. And it was like asking me, and had watched another like hour and a half webinar, and it was asking me questions about things that were like an hour into it. So I was like, all right, you actually watch it, or you just skipped ahead and pulled a question out of an hour. And either way,
super slick. Yeah, I'll take it.
It works. So like, we've had some good ones like that. The other thing we kind of implemented is the process of, they don't come to me now. So the first round of interviews, I'm like, who's going to work the most closely with this person? They do the initial vetting. So that employee will then call we'll look at them. I'll normally like shortlist all the resumes that come in to like, say we get 200, I might shortlist it to 30 and say, here's the 30 to you, go through and tell me what you think. That person will normally narrow down to about 5.
So when I was hiring admins originally, I had this type of filter set up, like you said, like what's our Facebook group. What I used to do is in my ad, I used to write that you needed to write the subject line to your email as administrator backwards.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see if they were detail oriented. And I also told them that I would only accept resumes in PDF format. And so if they didn't know how to do that, they're probably not going to be a good admin.
Yeah.
And so I needed that kind of level. This level of computer skills and this level of detail orientation before I even want to give this the second filter. Right? But I still ended up going forward to an HR company, and I've had better success since then. Yeah. In fact, we've had 2 hires through them. The first one only worked with us for about 6 months because her husband was transferred to Germany. And I'm working with her as a contractor now. Nice. She's still doing work for us in Germany.
That's perfect.
And so that was awesome.
That's what we like to do, is like have, because we can have that flexibility. We got people all over Canada, some in the US. We have an Australian guy, like.
Oh yeah, my real estate photography company has a loop through Vietnam.
Yeah.
That's like how we meet our delivery time.
That's perfect. Yeah, so that's what we do with Design Pickle.
Actually, I am a Design Pickle client.
They're good, right?
Yeah.
If you can find the right designer. We've had a few bounces in there that didn't go great.
So I have a bit of a, I have something that will improve almost everybody's relationship with a non-domestic designer. That bomb screen share for all of your responses to them. You sent me a design. Now I'm going to tell you about it and use my cursor to show you what I want changed.
Yeah.
Almost everybody who learns a second language, they are going to be better at spoken language than written language.
So I do it with screenshots.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I put I'll literally put the arrows with the circle and be like, this, one. And then I'll put in the notes, one, change this, this, and this.
Well, I knew I was onto something when Design Pickles started cheering me on.
Yeah.
So Design Pickles' responses to me were what edged me to keep going.
Do they send you family updates?
I have had a designer that did
that's
do
what
that
I was at. We're just we got a reply this morning, and he's like, oh, by the way, this weekend is my grandmother's 88th birthday. Here's a photo of my whole family for my grandmother's 88th birthday. And then I went to say goodbye to a friend from college, gave him a little farewell. It's a photo of all their friends from college together having a party.
That's such a great strategy.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well, it's also a good strategy.
Yeah, it'll help humanize it.
Well, the idea behind it is the first thing that we coach with our agents is how to become not an agent.
Yeah.
So when somebody walks into your open house, the first thing that you want to end up being is essentially like Andrew instead of the realtor.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. So and that's the same idea is that now that you have this in-depth look at your designer, you're going to think twice before canceling your design pickle.
Yeah.
You now know the guy.
Yeah, okay, this is the guy I'm supporting. He has a life.
And I don't think that that's a bad tactic because I think that we should be thinking about that anyway.
Yeah, literally the reason Trisha, who's the main one who deals with Design Pickle, shared it. She's like, okay, I'll be honest, when these first started coming, I thought they were weird. She's like, now I look forward to it. What can we do like this? So if you're on our newsletter, you might start seeing personal updates starting to be shared. Because even a little thing, I was at a conference a couple weeks ago and we had Jen from my team with us there. And what a lot of people don't know is on the side, she's actually a professional singer. Mm-hmm. She's trying to start this pop career, and she just had released a new single. And so the Friday morning of the conference was when her single came out. So I brought her on stage for a presentation. At the end, I was I stopped it and I was by the way, and I was anyone who signs up for it will give you or gets her single, I'll give you a free month in our mastermind community. It's just a fun way to support her. But how many people for the rest of the conference were bringing it up and talking about it with her? It completely changed the tone of how people interacted, and it was great.
That's awesome.
So we got to start doing more stuff like that.